or a robbery in the street, when there's a drug deal going down in Flint, police need to be able to respond immediately. But if they can't get there, they don't have the squads, they don't have the numbers, they don't have the capability, somebody really gets hurt. And if they get there, they are outgunned and outmanned. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't have to. You don't have the numbers. It takes longer for law enforcement officers to get there. As I said, when they get there, the risk is greater for them. Same goes for fire. It means that when there's a major fire, it takes longer to produce fewer responders. And from there, the cycle keeps going. Fewer cops, fewer firefighters leads to more crime and more arson. More crime and arson drives down property values. Lower property values drive down local budgets. Budget cuts drive down the number of cops and firefighters. It is a vicious cycle. This whole jobs bill is designed to start a virtuous cycle, to start it moving the other way. It's not the answer to all the problems, but every independent analyst has said it would produce between 1.3 and 1.9 million jobs. 1.3 and 1.9 million jobs. And you know what I heard last night? I heard some of our Republican friends and others on the floor saying, but it's temporary. That's like you showing up as an EMS. Somebody has an artery that has been cut, but they've also broken their back. They say, well, don't fool with the artery. You can't fix their back, so why fool with the artery? Temporary is important. Temporary saves lives. How many people do you know tonight that are going to bed literally, like in the family I come from? They're staring at the ceiling, wondering, literally wondering, am I going to be able to be in this house next month? Am I going to have a roof over my head? Am I going to have to pick up the phone and call my daughter at college and say, honey, you can't go back next semester? Am I going to be able to? And the list goes on. I don't know where these guys live. I don't know what their backgrounds are. Temporary is a lifetime for somebody without a job, someone losing their house. And look, folks, and then I have our conservative critics out there saying, okay, you may have the need, but they use a fancy word. There's no, the absorption rate is not able to accommodate all this. Translate it, even if you have the money and you bring it on, there's not enough folks to hire on. This guy here runs the COPS office. Last year, we're down to $245 million for the entire nation. He had over $5 billion of bona fide requests from mayors and county executives and governors all across America, all showing real need. So they say it can't be absorbed. How much trouble you'd have absorbing another, 100 cops? Not much at all. You wouldn't have much at all, would you? You'd be able to be done in a heartbeat. Look, folks, the fact of the matter is that we're in a position now where I don't buy people who say there's nothing we can do. I don't buy it. I didn't get in this business to do nothing. I didn't get in this business to tell people things are bad, nothing I can do about it, man. You got to do what you can do to help people now and help the overall economy. Ladies and gentlemen, that's why the President's jobs bill is so important. What we're proposing doesn't restore all the manpower, but let me tell you, it sure gives you additional flexibility and restores a great deal of it, Mr. Mayor. And one of the most important tools we can give first responders is to finally make good on a promise that was made after 9/11 and after Katrina. The 9/11 Commission came along, Harold, and said, what you guys need is a dedicated wireless broadband network that no one else can get on, so you can talk, so firefighters can talk to cops, cops can talk to the National Guard can talk to the mayors can talk to the Army, etc. You know how many lives we lost because we didn't have that capacity. That promise was made 10 years ago. Well, in this bill, we finally fulfill that promise. We say decisively, there's going to be a wireless airwave called the D block, totally dedicated to first responders, a clear channel that not able to be interrupted or get on by anyone else. And we dedicate $10 billion to build out a nationwide broadband network and give you the equipment to communicate on it. You say, oh my God, $10 billion, how can you pay for that? Well, guess what? You own the airways, folks, out there. The American people own it. The networks don't. Radio stations don't. You own it. And so we're saying we're going to auction off those bands out there. And the auction will bring $28 billion. We're going to take $18 billion of that and use it for deficit reduction, and $10 billion of that to keep a promise, so you're able to protect the citizens like you should be able to do. But folks, as you can tell, we have something in common. I feel very passionate about this, and I have for my whole adult life. But the jobs bill, folks, is not just about protecting our communities. It's about putting people back to work and putting money in the pockets of the middle-class folks and working folks who are lucky enough to have a job and are hanging on by their fingernails to stay in their home. It contains a payroll tax. A payroll tax that says that every one of you probably in here gets a pay stub if you're employed. And on that pay stub, it has a FICA tax of 7.2%. It cuts that in half. It says you only have to pay 3.1%. And that means an additional $1,500 in the pockets of 98% of working Americans. The family I come from, that means whether you can pay your automobile insurance. That means whether you can pay your house insurance. That means whether or not you can pay that prescription drug bill that has just been run up because somebody's been sick in your house. That means a big difference. For these big guys, $1,500 doesn't make much, but the family I was raised in, $1,500 matters. The second piece of this is, most of you have mortgages. If you have a home and have a mortgage, you're paying over 6%. Mortgage rates are now 4%. No one will let you refinance, and it costs too much. We in this provide your ability to refinance at 4%, and that would save the average American who has above a 6% mortgage $2,000 a year more in their pocket. That's $3,500 for people who are struggling just to keep their heads above water. It matters. It matters to people. And by the way, I heard last night, and I heard on all the talk shows, and I heard in the Republican debate, no new taxes. Well, guess what? Republicans just voted for a new tax last night. When they voted this down, it means that the payroll tax you now get, which expires in January, every one of your paychecks are going to take $1,000 more out of your pay next year. No problem raising your taxes. No problem raising your taxes, but God forbid we put a surtax on millionaires and billionaires. Folks, this is out of whack, man. This is out of whack. We also want to cut the payroll taxes, not just for employees, but on businesses. There are 35 million small businesses out there. If everyone could just hire one new person, that's 35 million new people with a job. That's not going to happen. But it gives you an idea of the opportunity. So we say to a small guy runs a hardware store, has 10 total employees. That means he's got $15,000 more a year to at least go out and hire a couple part-time people or to pay his bills or her bills. If you have 20 employees, that's 30 grand. You got 100 employees, figure it out. We also say, my son's one of those kids like a lot of yours who spent a year in Iraq. He came back a year ago. Thank God he's all right. But I've been to Iraq and Afghanistan 19 times. I can tell you these kids can do anything. Except when they come home, they can't find a job. They can't find a job. Their unemployment rate is 11.5%. Iraq and Afghan veterans, 11.5%. So we say in here, you go hire a small businessman goes hire a vet, you get a $9,000 tax break. What are they against? What are they against? Look, folks, here's something else we can do. Republicans and Democrats can agree on highways, bridges, ports that are in desperate need of modernization. I'm going from here to Grand Rapids, where I'm going to do an event related to infrastructure. It's true here as well as everywhere else. The infrastructure in Michigan has gotten a D grade. You're rated D. There are more than 2,500 bridges that the Society of Engineers has designated in your state that are considered structurally deficient or functionally obsolete. With this bill, we could begin fixing them. In doing so, we'd create an additional 11,700 good-paying construction jobs. You could raise a family out here in Michigan and make the highways and bridges safer in Michigan. I will also support 400,000 education jobs around the country. You guys have had to lay off teachers here, and you're at risk of laying off more. And that doesn't just mean teachers are out of a job. It means your kids' class sizes go up. Let me ask you a rhetorical question. Do you think, I just got back from a week in East Asia and days in China. You think Chinese are cutting their education budget to compete with us? You think the Indonesians are cutting their budget? Do you think the Germans are cutting their budget? What in God's name are we doing? What are we doing? It also provides money in here to modernize 35,000 schools in America. You know, the average school in America, and I guess in your city as well, the average school age is 40 years old. In some cities and states, for example, when I head to Grand Rapids, the school I'm going to is 100 years old. Folks, the average school, they tell me there is 70 years old. If you just did nothing but modernize their heating plants, we spend now $6 billion a year to heat our schools. That's twice as much money as we spend on computers, on books, and supplies for our students. If you just modernize the system, put new windows in, you create a lot of jobs, cut that bill to $4 billion, you don't have to lay off another 2,000 teachers. Folks, if we were growing at 20%, we should be doing this stuff. If everything was totally healthy, we should be doing that stuff. Businesses aren't bad, but no business is going to go refurbish all these schools. No business is going to build the road or the bridge. And guess what? Business aren't going to come to Michigan because the road isn't good enough or the bridge isn't good enough. So folks, what are they against? What's ideological about fixing a bridge? What's it about? Well, I tell you what it's about. It's all about priorities. The country needs this. We're willing to negotiate with our Republican friends if they have any better way to put people back in the classroom, cops on the beat, firefighters in a fire hall, get small businesses help so they can employ, give people a tax break who need it. They get better ideas. I say to the press, we are for it. What is your idea? The same people who rated our jobs bill rated the Republican bill. And they're not, these are not democratic organizations, Moody's and econometric models. You know what they said? There's some good ideas in the Republican bill, but would not produce any new jobs. Long-term is good. We agree with them long-term. We should cut the deficit long-term. That's why we cut the deficit over $1 trillion just in the last 3 months. We think we should cut it another $1.7 trillion in the month of November. But folks, in the meantime, people are hurting and the country is too. What we're not willing to do, we're not willing to do nothing. That's what we're not willing to compromise on. This is a fight. It's a fight for the soul of this country. It's a fight for the middle class. It's a fight about what kind of country we want. It's about making sure America's fire departments, police departments continue to be a large part of the American fabric and be able to do their job. It's about reversing the cycle of crime and fire and unemployment and start a new cycle of jobs and some prosperity. It's about keeping you safe so you can keep all of us safe. And it's about a president and I who are prepared to fight like crazy to do whatever we can to make sure you have the resources to be able to protect us. Folks, there's a lot at stake. We don't have all the answers. We have some absolutely clear answers. We know what we can do now. Don't tell me we can't do something now that's very positive because we can't do everything now. Don't tell me that. Don't tell my brothers. Don't tell the guys I grew up with. Don't tell the women I went to school with that, you know, we're not going to help you now because we can't do everything now. That's the answer we're getting. We're not going to stand for it. We're going to fight. May God bless you all, and may God protect our church. Thank you. This is what you call a captive audience. It's like the front pew in church. No way else. Thank you all so much. I appreciate it. Thank you, man. Thank you, man. Thank you. Appreciate it.